Welcome to Born to be Barefoot. I'm your host, Stuart Gordon, with my co-host, Katie Suyuki. Welcome to our latest podcast in the series Born to be Barefoot, sponsored by Barefoot Science Insoles. Our guest tonight is a lady called Rae Reynolds, and largely we're talking about people achieving all sorts of things in endurance athletics, in adventuring, in all sorts of different sports and activities. But of course, for every one of those people that achieve something with their sport or their activity, there's somebody in the background who's helping them achieve that, whether it's a coach or a doctor, or in Rae's case, massage and shockwave therapy and other esoteric therapies that she's going to tell us all about. So welcome, Rae.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. So tell us a little bit about what you do. I know, as I say, you massage people, you do shockwave therapy. Expand on that and what other things that you have up your sleeve.
So I primarily do shockwave therapy, which is sound waves, which is like very large sound waves. So it releases and regenerates soft tissue. So basically putting everybody back into balance. As we know that stress and just the daily grind can throw things off physically for people. So shockwave is an excellent modality to do that. I mean, I have been a massage therapist for 23 years or something like that. And then I was introduced to shockwave about over 5 years ago. And like I said, I predominantly do that, but it's all soft tissue release and everything is on a soft tissue basis. So that's what I do. So, and shockwave is great for anything. Tendinitis, any itis, plantar fasciitis, leg length discrepancies, low back pain, neck pain, anything, pretty much anything that you could be experiencing physically that might slow you down.
Yeah. So you're working on using these techniques on a whole range of different people from all different walks of life. Any interesting characters that you can tell us about in Top Secret?
I'm lucky. I live in a small town, so I do get a wide variety of people, like ranging from, teens to like 80 some years old. So, but basically everybody's kind of coming in with the same thing. One of the things that, can throw off somebody's low back, which is, we're going to go talk about barefoots as well. So it starts right at your feet. So, if you have a bad gait or if you sit predominantly all day, everything that we do in society is forward flex, right? Everything is from the front. And we don't have a lot of stimulation through the posterior aspect of our bodies. So that's where barefoot comes in too. But I will get to that. But pretty much anybody, whether you're an athlete or you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever you're doing out there, or you're working every day, people sit all the time, they commute to work. So your hip flexors become very tight. And then that throws off your leg length. If you think about building a house on an uneven foundation, everything above is going to be off kilter. So if you can put everything back into balance, and shockwave does that by, balancing out your pelvis. And as you release the soft tissue, it also releases the joint as well. So, and then the barefoots, where it comes into play for me is most people are pretty active or are on their feet all day. The barefoots help to stimulate your central nervous system in the sense to keep you symmetrical from left to right, and anterior to posterior, and it uses left and right brain. So it helps to keep that leg length balanced so that it doesn't throw everything off, because your body's constantly adapting regardless of what it's doing, whether you're a high performance athlete or you're out raking the leaves. There's always something that's going to throw things off, and then you throw in stress and all of that good stuff. So yes.
This is great. So Rae, you just described my working life. I don't know whether you know anything about what I do, but basically you and I do a very similar thing. I don't use shockwave therapy, but like you, okay, I've been treating people with hands-on therapies, massage, remedial treatments, sports therapy for 30 years. And
okay,
when did you shift over to doing the shockwave stuff? Because for me,
So I've always I've been on a personal healing journey my whole entire life. And I'm sure, as you know, with anybody in the healthcare profession, we always learn the medical side of it, muscles, joints, things like that. So I have always tried like new things. I've always taken other courses and to add to my repertoire, but also to find that answer, the big picture of why some people are balanced, some people aren't, why some of the, treatments hold, some people's don't. So, I got into shockwave about 5 years ago. I had wrecked my own arm, and as you know, massage therapy is a very physical job, and I was always that therapeutic, deep tissue kind of girl. And I again, it was part of, it was part of my own physicality that I couldn't really do massage as much as I was doing, but I was still constantly looking for answers to solve the problem of what's going on physically for people. And I just happened to connect with somebody when I was living in Barrie, and we had pretty like-minded methodologies, and I think more people out there need to know more about their bodies. I think they would take care of it better if they did. But anyway, so he had also wrecked his arm, and he was looking for somebody to be his hands-on for while he was going through rotator cuff surgery. And so I got a chance. He's a specialist and a shockwave specialist, and I got a chance to work for him and work for him and with him and be his hands for a couple of years while he went through surgery. And then that's how when Lance Todd came into my life with Barefoots and stuff like that as well. So but shockwave is one of those. It's one of the most amazing treatments most effective treatments I have ever seen in my life. And because of the kind of massage therapist I am, I'm very detail oriented, and anatomy is my specialty, which it should be for all massage therapists. But so this changed my life. It changed my life. It also helped me heal my own arm, which was
great
perfect.
stuff, I think we all need a mentor, or it's great we can go on courses, we can learn stuff, but day in, day out, trying things, watching somebody who's got a technique, got a method, got a system, whatever it is, it's just invaluable. I had the same thing with a guy who was a mixture of Chinese medicine and all sorts of different things, massagey stuff and chiropractic stuff as well that she does, and apply kinesiology. So again, you can kind of learn from people and bring your own skills together. And that's obviously what you've done. And what a great experience. So how does your working day go? You're seeing, take me through a sort of an average day for something. Because I think for a lot of people, they come and see
I am
something.
by far average.
This is the thing, is that, people come and see us for a treatment, and it's fantastic. We'd never ever overlook the honor of somebody choosing to come and see us for treatment, to hand over their body to us to help them try and get better. And I think, there's a lot more to it that we go through as a therapist. And I think it's great that we can combine in this little chat, give people a picture of what we do, how we go about our day, how we go about preparing ourselves, the training behind it. I mean, how long was your training, for instance, for massage in Canada?
So in Canada, it's 2,200 hours. And I did a fast track version, so it took me about 18 months to do. It's pretty extensive. I mean, it was, anatomy, kinesiology, physiology, neurophysiology, pathology. I did, cadaver work at Western University. So it was pretty. I've had a pretty interesting career, and like I said, because I'm a big picture kind of girl, and I want to know all of the answers. And then, I also look outside of the medical, the physical and the emotional carrying that you do as well, right? Like we all have stress. We all live in a very stressful society, and coming out of COVID, and we have a fear-based society and all of that as well. And people carry that in their stance, their posture, in their daily living. So I think I just completely got sidetracked there.
No, it's
When I trained with Scott, I was living in Barrie, and then I came up here. And so I live in a small town by Georgian Bay. And I just started my practice pre-COVID. So it's taking, obviously, that it takes time to build a clientele up again. And I started all over again just in my 50s. So anyway, so my days are pretty nice. I'm kind of semi-retired. I get to see some people. So, and with COVID, the physical stress of COVID, I think, wore out people. Like, it literally, when you live in constant fear, it changes the way you carry yourself and all of that. So I've seen a lot of people, I think, just recouping from that process that we've just lived through and gone through for the last 2.5 years. And like I said, when you even physically, when you live in fear, and a lot of people were more sedentary during COVID. They weren't as active. So what happens with the round posture. You're sitting, so your hip flexors and all of that are tighter. And, then that's what helps, or what pulls off your leg length. And so that whole forward comfort level, that fetal position, is the kind of posture that most people have been in for the last couple of years. And so, yeah, that's kind of what my days are. And because of what I do, people, they've tried everything. They've tried massage, they've tried chiropractic, and, word of mouth, as you know, is one of the best things to build up your practice. And I get great results, excellent results with shockwave therapy. So a lot of people were at their wits' end during COVID, and, let's try something new, right? And shockwave's been around for 30 years. Orthopedic surgeons created it. And so it's been around for a while, but I live in a small rural area and it's not very well known up here. So I'm seeing maybe 10 to 15 patients a week. And for, like I said, a wide range of things, tendinitises, and just general health. People want to feel better. They're coming out of COVID, and people just generally want to feel better and feel good and not live with aches and pains and all of that stuff.
I think it's really the whole thing about your description then of people coming out of COVID sort of stuck in that anxiety and fear factor. It's a fascinating one, that, because of course a lot of people during COVID also got their hours slot. Over here in the UK, they could get that out for an hour. Masses and masses of people took up running. Masses of people started to go out cycling and walking. And of course, unfortunately, a lot of them are doing it with that baseline of tension and baseline of poor posture. So
right.
I think it's a really interesting area that,
Well, I think the other thing too is, like you said, a lot for over in the UK, you only had like an hour. That's one of the things that, we, as human beings, as the human race that we are, we're not meant to be sitting and sedentary for as much as we do. And, and that goes for pretty much anybody, like anybody that's sitting in a desk all day, that commutes to work over an hour there and back. It's, we've become a very sedentary society. And I'm a very active person. Me sitting down here for this Zoom is probably one of the only times during the day. So
you can stand up and walk around if you like. That's okay. Do some lunges, do some squats.
Leaves all day, so I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. So you also, when we chatted briefly before we started recording the podcast, you talked about energy work as well. And I think, again, it's an area that I love. It's an area that I'm fascinated by. So talk us a little bit about that. And I think, again, if hopefully people out there are listening who are coming out of COVID, they're taking up new activities, they've got stresses, they've got strains, they've got life happening to them. So energy work.
So let me just back up a little bit. So there's 3 things that will actually turn your body on to heal itself. One is sound waves, which is the shock wave. One is frequency, which is what I'm going to talk about now, which is the on-demand therapy, which is the energy work. And then the third thing is infrared therapy. So shockwave is the sound waves, which is big sound waves. So everything, and then on-demand therapy, what that actually stands for is wave therapy. So it's electromagnetic therapy that taps into your own system through frequency. So every cell in your body resonates at a frequency. And whether it's your heart, your lungs, your central nervous system, everything resonates at a frequency. So due to stress, emotional or physical, dietary or environmental, inflammation happens inside the body. So what this machine does that I have is it reduces cellular inflammation. So with that, inflammation leads to disease, and then disease leads to cancer. So if we can get things freed up and get rid of some of the cellular inflammation, it helps for the whole system, all of our systems in our body to work and to function freely.
So how do you deliver this treatment?
So I can show you. So it's a machine, and then I have like a multitude of applicators. So electromagnetic, so magnetic fields are endless, right? So you apply. I scan people, and as I scan people, I take their pulse. So it's a biofeedback through your pulse. Your pulse changes as you scan, and where the inflammation is, it actually reacts to the electromagnetic waves. And so I find where the inflammation is in your body. I place the applicator. So you're laying down on the massage table, and so I place the applicators where you need it. And then I have. So this is on-demand therapy. This is the actual machine, and then it's hooked up through my computer. And so there's a whole bunch of settings and frequencies so there's 4 different modules. The first module scans all your internal organs. The second module is all your coping mechanisms, which would be sleep patterns, hormonal, your central nervous system, your chakras, all of that stuff. And then the third module is any bacteria or viruses that you may have present in your body, any parasites, anything like that, microorganisms, basically. And then the fourth module is anything dietary. So carbohydrates, lead, that kind of thing that's in your system. And basically what On-Demand does is balances that all out.
Wow. That's interesting.
So I got into that. I was at a fascial symposium out in Vancouver, Canada, and it was researchers from all around the world, and they were doctors, and anyway, so basically our whole body is fascia, and basically, bones and things like that. It just has different ingredients, but the base substance is all fascia. So in that weekend, that's where I learned about the 3 things that turn your body on to heal itself. And so I had already. The guy that was one of the presenters of the symposium, he owns Remington Medical, where I bought my shockwave machine in Toronto. And one of his staff always said, "Oh, you should try this On-Demand. You have that brain to like see beyond." And after I came back from that, I got this machine and have been doing it for the last 4 years, I would say 3 years or so. And it's incredible. Like, I've seen incredible results from this. I mean, we're all energy, right? And again, going back to, there's a lot of negative energy out there, and we live in a very fast paced society, and a lot of stress. So, your body can only try to balance itself out so much, but if you keep adding and keep adding and keep adding the stress levels, then your body just gets out of whack. So that's what this does.
Yeah, I think what we know as therapists is if stress will find your weak spot. So
absolutely.
So we can stop it at source. But at the interest, you mentioned fascia. I think just for the sake of discussion here, I mean, fascia, for a lot of people, they might have heard of plantar fascia. They might have heard of the tensor fasciolata, which is the big wrap. Fascia is the material that wraps around everything. It wraps around our organs, our tendons, our muscles, our nerves, every fiber in the body, the cells themselves. So It's quite interesting, isn't it, that if you go back to the ancient sort of Chinese medicine, the acupuncture and such like, I remember chatting with an equine acupuncturist, and he was saying that his belief was that the needles were going into the fascial layers where they should be lined by fluid, and that the fluid was the thing that they were affecting by either stimulating or calming. And I wonder whether when you do your work with the different equipment that you've got there, whether there's a sort of a similar baseline to this, that there's this communication through the body, through the fascial tissue or through the fluid that lubricates and transmits the electrical chemical impulses through the tissues, that's what you're actually getting to and finding where there are blockages or interruptions or whatever. Yeah. Is that something you would have felt or seen in your work?
For sure. For sure. I mean, as a massage therapist, like you said, you're definitely stimulating everything on a cellular level. But with shockwave, that's exactly what it does. So anything that I've just explained, like plantar fasciitis, tendonitis, that's all inflammation. So basically what you're doing with the sound wave or the frequency is you're opening up channels into that inflammation so that your body can bring in new fluids to heal it, essentially.
Perfect. Yeah. So there's an area, I had a really funny sequence of, I suppose, coincidences or circumstances, but I've treated people on and off for years with chronic fatigue.
Yes.
And I've always gone for the top of the neck, bottom of the skull, the occipital area at the bottom of the skull there, and tried to work on that area. In particular, felt I might be influencing some tensions around the vagus nerve. And I was doing this a year or two ago on a young guy, 21-year-old guy, who'd been absolutely blighted with chronic fatigue. And then his mother got all excited because she found a friend of hers had written a book about the vagus nerve. But of course, there's also been with the COVID, coming back to your points about the COVID situation, we see a lot of what has been described as long COVID here, which basically has the same presentation of symptoms as chronic fatigue. And there's been a whole raft of research coming out on the vagus nerve and how stimulating the vagus nerve can switch us back out of an inflammatory response.
Right.
Then I spoke to some guy in Norway who does laser therapy, and he was saying he'd just gone off on a course back to school at age 55 to learn about use of laser therapy on specific points on the body to get us out of this inflammatory response. And here you are talking about shockwave and the underbent stuff, which is to get us out of these inflammatory responses. So everything's coming together in a funny kind of way, and lots of different therapies. So people go to all these different therapies all over the world who are doing ancient therapies, modern therapies, but they're essentially
we're all trying to tap into the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have taken an acupuncture. I took a medical acupuncture course at McMaster about 10 years ago. Maybe longer than that, a while ago anyways. So again, for chronic stuff, I mean, again, I was not an acupuncturist by any means, but for acute stuff, it worked greatly. But it's like anything. Why do some things work for some people and others don't? So I do this vagus nerve stimulation as well. That's an acupuncture based thing that you there's spots in your ear that stimulate. And then you put this grounding pad below your navel, and so again, stress. If we can balance ourselves out, put us back into rest and digest instead of being stuck in fight or flight. Then, so yes, I've done that. I do that as well, and especially here in Canada, it's this little vagus nerve stimulator is actually approved by Health Canada as a preventative for COVID and to help treat the symptoms of COVID, because as you know, when you're in fight or flight, it affects everything, your lungs, your digestion, all of it, your heart. So this helps to balance and stabilize. And, so I usually use that in conjunction with all the treatments that I do here, because a lot of people are stressed out and we're still in a state of stress, even though we're apparently through COVID, right? Yeah. And people are, I think, like I said, that emotional stress, that's one of the biggest things I think that is not talked about enough is that, what your brain cannot process, it dumps down into your body, right? So what your brain can't process, your liver is anger, your kidneys are fear, your bladder is irritation, etc. So that emotional baggage that we've all been taught to sweep under the carpet actually manifests into your body as inflammation. And the more you don't deal with things, the worse it gets. And the chronic fatigue thing, I think it's basically that we're overloaded with stuff, emotions, and that we don't deal with, and that we don't we don't release, and all of that. I mean, you can go for a massage or you can do whatever, but if you don't release some of the emotional tension with it, then it's going to just rebound and come right back.
Yeah, I think the message is, looking at what we hope are our audience of listeners with Born to be Barefoot, we're talking about people who want to get out there and do stuff.
Be healthy.
Trekking, running, surfing, you name it. But of course, a lot of people ran or do run and still run now or go out running to try and relieve stress. They go to the gym to try and relieve stress. And I've always had this conversation with people for years and say, well, okay, it may make you feel better, but what you're probably doing is exercising on the stress energy, not on healthy, naturally produced energy that you've created through diet and all the rest of it. So I think, what's our message here, Rae? What are we saying to people about before you go and exercise? Yes, great, do it, absolutely. But before you go and exercise, get this balance first.
I think that we all have to come back to a simpler life, and stop the rat race that's going on in your own heads, get off the hamster wheel of life, and go outside to enjoy nature for what it is, to listen to the birds, to listen to nature, to get in touch with a universe that's inside of us. And instead of just trying to coexist with everything, actually go out there and be part of it. And being part of that is putting healthy foods into your body that, have been grown locally and organically and all of that stuff. And walking out in nature, being outside, breathing, connecting. I think the biggest thing is we're so concerned about connecting with everybody through social media and all of this stuff that we forget to actually connect with ourselves. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that you can do, is turn the mirror around and figure out how to connect with yourself and learn to love yourself and nurture that. And part of that is a healthy diet, a healthy mindset, retrain your brain to think more positively, be outside as often as you can, to just listen, just listen. We forget to listen, and to connect back to ourselves. We forget that we are with us for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, that the bit about listening. I mean, I go walking every day. We've got two very hairy, smelly hounds. And we live in beautiful countryside, so I go out walking every day and I listen. And I've never considered actually sticking a pair of headphones on and listening to music when I'm out walking. And it always intrigues me that I know lots of people run and they stick their pods in or whatever, and they're listening to podcasts. Thank you if you're listening to us. Thank you. But just for some of your run, take the headphones off and just listen to what's going on around you. If you're out in nature, if you're running in the town and it's cars and forget it, keep the headphones on and listen to some music. But if you're out in the countryside, I absolutely totally agree with you. Get in touch with it and listen to it. And it baffles me when I see people walking and running in beautiful countryside with a pair of headphones on. But I don't know whether you saw this as well, but when with lockdown, where we live, as I say, we're out with the dogs, we've got horses, we're in the countryside. There's a bridle path that goes right past our house and down the track. And what was fantastic during lockdown was suddenly we saw it became like the motorway, with people with families, mum and dad and a couple of kids out on their bikes or out walking. And the kids were loving it because both mum and dad were out there. And quite often, I'm sure, quite obviously that neither of those parents have been on a push bike for a long time, but they got better as the weeks went on. But, within a week of lockdown finishing and people going back to life, that flow of people going past our horses and past our field, which we were down in every day, just dried up. And I just thought that was terribly sad. So, it's great that people took to the countryside and because they had the time to do it, but they make the time, find the time now. I think your sentiments I absolutely love. Get outside, be at one with nature, listen, find a park, find a woodland.
But you know what? One of the simplest things that you can do, it's not necessarily even, is listen to your own breath.
Ooh.
You know, like when you're, if you can't get outside, and that's part of what meditating is connecting to your own breath. So when you're walking, when you're doing whatever, if you can't get outside, because some people I'm sure are in places that they cannot, listen to your own breath. If it's labored, if it's shallow, you know, like breathe deeper. You know, a lot of people, because when we live, because we live in such a stressful society, we only breathe into the first lobe of your lung. We don't get that rib expansion that happens when you actually mindfully breathe. And we forget to do that. We're all running around. Like I said, the hamster wheel of life is killing us all. And I think that we need to just stop and connect back to our own breath. And that's your soul. That's your soul. That breathing, living entity inside of yourself is who you are.
Yeah. I love getting people to play with their breath. When I get people on the table, breathe into your stomach, breathe into your left shoulder, breathe into your bottom of your right lung, into your back. And it's funny, you know, people start off doing it, and you know, I'm guessing you've done a similar sort of thing. And how the heck can I do that? Don't be ridiculous. And then they work at it a little bit, and they get their mind focuses in on it, and they relax into it. And suddenly, you see somebody expanding the bottom half of their right lung area around the. And again, I don't know which fascial stuff you train with, but there's a saying which I love, which is we shouldn't have a rib cage. We should refer to it as the rib basket. And that was under a guy called Tom Myers. And to me, that's a beautiful description. We have this rib cage, and a cage encloses us, it traps us, it holds us prisoner. The rib basket, we want like a wicker basket. We want it to be able to stretch and expand in every direction when we breathe. And that's what I try and say to people: play with your breath, even when you're out walking or out running. Play with it in that environment, as you say. Listen to it. I love that description a minute ago. Is it heavy? Is it rasping? Are you shallow breathing? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We want people for longevity. This is this whole essence of our podcast is let's talk to people about sport. Let's talk to people about activity. Let's talk to people about life, therapists, coaches, doctors, athletes, longevity of doing whatever it is that makes us tick. And you've got to breathe, because once you stop breathing, there's no more longevity in anything.
Absolutely. But again, too, I think, like I said, connecting to your own breath makes you connect to yourself. And I think that that's one thing and one person that we forget to connect with ourselves once, at least every day, right? Like a lot of people, they're trying to please everybody outside. Everything's an external circle, whereas the most important circle is inside yourself.
Rae, this has been an absolute pleasure. I think this is probably very different to any of the other podcasts we've done. And I hope with all my heart and my breath that the message that you're giving out resonates with people. Everything.
Stuart, I was so hopeful post-COVID that, like you said, you saw all of these changes and I did as well. Like I live by the water on Georgian Bay, and I live in one of the most beautiful parts of this country. And I saw people out enjoying nature and being outside and walking. And like, as you said, I don't know if they were doing it out of, just habit or trying to make new habits, but I was hopeful that those things would stick, that those little things in life would stick for people instead of jumping right back into the rat race.
I think it's unfortunately not as much as we would like.
Exactly. And, but if we can offer a little bit, any help we can offer along the way, and hopefully we all realize that we just need to slow down and listen to ourselves and love ourselves and connect with ourselves.
Well, I know full well, if I was less than 3,000 miles away from you, I would be leaping onto your treatment table, Rae, and saying, heal me. So anyone who can get to you, I hope they do come to you. Where can people find you? Have you got any contacts? I mean, obviously this podcast, we get people all over the world listening.
The easiest way people can contact me is raereynolds.ca. So it's a little website that I have, and people can contact me through there through email, and that's probably the easiest. So it's RaeReynolds.ca. And and even if they can't get here, if they have any questions or concerns, I'm totally available for that.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Anything to help people out get in the right step, right? And
exactly.
That's what they're, yeah.
We'll start with feet for best foot forward and all that sort of stuff. And absolutely, I urge people to contact you. I mean, you're singing from the same song sheet as me. I'm delighted to have met you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And one last word of wisdom. Come on, what have you got for us?
Learn to love yourself. Learn to love yourself, and it'll affect everything and everyone around you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Rae.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Stuart, for your time.
That's an absolute pleasure. So there we go. There's Rae Reynolds. Look her up, email her, contact her, hear some words of wisdom, get some healing advice, and breathe. Follow that message, breathe and love yourself. Thank you, Rae. We'll hopefully see you again.
Take care. Thanks, Bye. Stuart. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Born to Be Barefoot podcast with myself, Kate Tsuyuki, and the wonderful Stuart Gordon. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star review. We'll see you guys next week.